Hey fellow YouTubers, Peter. Just want to talk a little bit about a subject that's sensitive among a lot of people, and that a lot of people question, and that's the color of Jesus. I think it's irrelevant. A lot of people don't, so I just kind of wanted to touch on it a little bit. There are some people that think he's black, and there's a lot of people that think he's white. Me personally, I don't know what color he is. I don't claim to know what color he is, and the purpose of this video is not to even definitively say what color he is, because I believe it's irrelevant. Now, a little bit of history. We all know that the early Israelites, Hebrews, were darker skinned people. Maybe not necessarily black in color, but darker skin. And the reason why we know this is because Abraham was mistaken for an Egyptian, and so was Moses. So from that we can denote that the early Israelites were a darker skinned people. So, but we also know that genetically, when as a race evolves, they change. Their features change, color changes, eye color changes, everything. So, and we also know that between the time of Abraham and Jesus, there were numerous interminglings between the Israelites and the surrounding nations, because Israelites were always going into captivity, mixing with the other races, and every time they came back to their homeland, they probably looked different. So we can also see this when the Bible talks about how King David looked. They said he was ruddy, and we know ruddy translates as red. So, and you know, that's a characteristic of lighter skinned people. Me being a light skinned black, when I was younger, I was lighter. I was a little bit lighter than I am now, and in certain cases, certain circumstances, I turned red. You know, so that doesn't necessarily mean he's white. Doesn't really necessarily mean he's black. Some people use, well, before I get to that, some people think that he's black because of certain verses. The Bible never really describes Jesus in the flesh. We do know that he was a normal-looking Jew, shorter hair, because he was a carpenter and he worked with his hands. He must have been a fit man, because he walked all the time, walked everywhere, and again, because he was a carpenter. He must have really didn't look different, and that actually he probably looked a little bit more homely than the other Jews. And the reason why I don't think he looks any different than the other Jews at that time is because Judas had to point him out, had to distinguish him out, so that he could be arrested. So I want to expound on one passage that some people use to proclaim that he was a black man, and that's Revelations 1:14 through 15, and I'll read it to you. And it goes, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Now, I know you might have heard me put emphasis on some words, and I did that because those words are similes. And we know that similes are used to not specifically compare things, but to broadly compare things. Like, for instance, the sky was black as night. You know, it's not, it doesn't mean that the sky was black, but it was like night, not night, you know. And so, and it doesn't say that his hair was wool. It was like wool. It was white like wool, as a matter of fact, as white as snow. And his eyes were as a flame of fire. Doesn't mean that his eyes were fire. They were as fire. When it talks about his feet being like unto brass, they were probably a similar color to brass, but you can't really say that, because in the very next part it goes, as if they burned in the furnace. Okay, so as if they burned in the furnace, not they burned in the furnace. And the word burned in this passage doesn't even mean past tense. In the Greek, that word is puro, or poroi, and it means to kindle, to be ignited, to glow, to literally be refined, to be inflamed, to burn, fiery, be on fire. Now, by my explanation of that word in the Greek, you can see that it's not past tense. So, we all know when metal burns, it radiates. It's red, it's orange, and it's yellow, depending on the temperature. So, we can denote from that Jesus' skin was probably just radiant. I mean, and it says his voice is as the sound of many waters. It's not saying his voice was many waters. It was as the sound of many waters, which probably mean that it was convictive. It was strong, you know. So, anyway, you know, I don't want to dig in it too hard because I don't want to offend anyone. I don't claim to know everything, but just by reading this and doing a little bit of studying, and studying the Greek text, you can plainly see that it's not translated as the Greek is translated. You know, they did the best that they could, and you know, that's what we got. So again, I want to reiterate that burned in this text is actually present tense. I mean, it is happening, not has happened. And just for an example about how it doesn't take generations for features to change in a person, I'm going to throw up some pictures of my sons. The first picture is my youngest son. You look at him, he looks like a white kid. He's really, really light skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, but he's actually black. There's another picture of my oldest son, kind of olive skin, but you can still tell that he's black. You know, he has Puerto Rican features because his mom is Puerto Rican. So just by that, you can tell that it doesn't take long for features and colors to change in a person. So anyway, always open to comments, just as long as there's no profanity, and let's all respect each other. I'm open to a correction because I'm not perfect. God didn't make me perfect for a reason, and I thank God for that every day because I learn something every single day. Again, God bless everyone, and I'll see you guys again.